Kai Havertz objectively failed at Chelsea despite his Champions League final goal, and yet that was enough to justify a £65 million transfer across to London rivals Arsenal. This transfer alone was enough to baffle the world of football, and their worries seemed to be justified. And yet this chess move is one of 8 more transfers that have confused fans from around the world. So as we come to the end of the most unpredictable time on the football calendar, here are some of the most questionable transfers this summer, and you cannot justify some of these. Number 8, Gabri Vega to Al Ahly. One of 2 entries on this list of players chucking away a perfectly good footballing career in the name of some sweet cash. Gabri Vega was becoming one of the most promising Spanish prospects last season, starting 36 games in La Liga for Celta Vigo, scoring 11 goals and assisting 4 in the process. Being Spanish, good at football, and having a face every mother would love, it looked that the Perino-born youngster had everything he could ever want, apart from generational wealth at the age of 21, because life can be so harsh. So despite interest from huge clubs from around Europe, specifically English sides Liverpool and Man City, and nearly being on the brink of signing for Serie A champions Napoli, when Saudi Arabia came knocking, he never looked back. It now looks that Vega will continue his footballing progression at Saudi Arabian club Al Ahly, and I won't tell you my opinion, I'll tell you Tony Cruz's. Embarrassing. Number 7, Kepa Arrizabalaga to Real Madrid. There's something in the Spanish this season, but this time, rather than causing a global influenza pandemic, it's just led to some odd transfer dealings. On the 10th of August, Thibaut Courtois suffered a torn ACL. How a goalkeepers manage that, I do not know. You'll have to ask his coach or Kevin De Bruyne's ex-girlfriend. Either way, that left Los Blancos without a first-choice goalkeeper. So in the best example of failing upwards, Chelsea's third-choice goalkeeper behind Robert Sanchez and the Wind, the £75 million star had now signed for a season-long loan deal with the biggest club on the planet. A truly baffling set of circumstances you can only sort of look at and hope the best for him. Number 6, Romelu Lukaku to Roma. Opposite to the biggest club in Spain wanting you between their sticks, Romelu Lukaku found himself actively rejected by the whole of Italy. In the loveless marriage that is Lukaku and Chelsea, despite Pochettino taking the reins, it always looked like the Belgian would be offloaded, and a deal was almost agreed with Inter Milan after just completing his second stint at the club. But Big Rom couldn't keep his eyes off of the old lady, confusing both Inter Milan fans and Megan Thee Stallion. The flirting with Juventus during negotiations with Milan instantly cost Lukaku his permanent move to Inter, and just as quickly, the Juventus fans began to turn on him as well, actively protesting the thought of Romelu playing at the Allianz. Now, despite me finding the general hate towards Lukaku a little uncomfortable, with the Belgian now sat in London and somehow managing to piss off his ex, his wife, and his side chick, it was hard to disagree that he had made a tit of the whole situation, until Jose Mourinho walked through the door. Like some sort of Portuguese granddad, he was willing to let Romelu move in for the time being. A loan deal was agreed between Chelsea and Roma, and somehow the most polarizing player in Italy was now teaming up with the most polarizing man in football. Number 5, Ruben Neves to Al Hilal. In our second and final installment of Saudi Arabian transfers, because man gets more money isn't a particularly interesting storyline. However, this one might be the most important of them all. Before Ruben hopped on a private jet to the Middle East, the Saudi Pro League were very much in the market for, oh, they were class in 2016 type of players like Cristiano Ronaldo, Karim Benzema, and N'Golo Kante. But on the 27th of June, the Premier League had its eyes opened to the enormity of the pull of Saudi Arabian football. And by pull, like your favorite football creator at a bar, most of it has to do with money. The Portuguese international felt like he was entering his prime, and a potential move to a side competing in Europe really felt like it was on the cards. But Pete Wicks in an orange t-shirt had other plans. A deal was set in place for the Wolverhampton man to earn a reported £300,000 a week playing for Saudi champions Al Hilal, and suddenly the league became a real threat. This move move opened the door for almost anyone to be on the watch list of Saudi Arabia and potentially change the transfer market forever. Number 4, Wataru Endo to Liverpool. Once again, like your favourite content creator at a bar, Liverpool's hunt for a 6 had proven quite difficult. After following Jude Bellingham for well over 2 years, which now seems like a failed attempt at grooming a 19-year-old, and narrowly missing out on Tchouaméni last season, when the Reds decided to let Fabinho go, it felt like the right moment to make that statement signing. With a clear hole in the squad that recent signings Szoboszlai and McAllister could not fill, most of world football expected Liverpool to make that big money move to secure a defensive midfielder for the next 5 to 6 years. So imagine our shock when Liverpool made a move for Stuttgart's Japanese-born 30-year-old Wataru Endo. Dubbed a late bloomer by Jurgen Klopp, the German seemed convinced that the man with 120 appearances in the Bundesliga was all Liverpool needed at the base of their midfield. From Caicedo, Fernandes, Bellingham and Tchouaméni to a man that wears a gum shield to play football, his dental concerns paled in comparison to Liverpool fans' worries about the protection of their back line, proving a truly unsettling signing for the Reds. Number 3, Cole Palmer to Chelsea. From one club needing to fill a position to another jamming as many players into one position as humanly possible. Chelsea, before the signing of Cole Palmer, had Noni Madueke, Hudson-Odoi, Mykhailo Mudryk and Raheem Sterling. So imagine my shock when the West London club splashed 47 million on Manchester City attacker Cole Palmer. However, this transfer is strange for both the buying and selling club. For Manchester City, it seemed that the Englishman was now starting to make real waves in the first team, and with the departure of Riyad Mahrez, it looked like it could finally be Palmer's time to impress. But in Chelsea's latest episode of Giving No Hope to the Academy Lads, they decided it was right for them to swoop in for the Manchester City talent. A fee of 47 million proved too big to turn down, and Chelsea had made their 11th signing of the window, bringing their total spend to a staggering 400 million. An unexpected decision on both sides of the deal, but Todd Boehly will be happy his kindergarten for football players will grow by 1 member. Number 2, David Raya to Arsenal. I'm pretty good at making chocolate cake, but if my mum brought in a small Spanish man to make a second batch of chocolate cake, I would start to think I'm not as good at making chocolate cake as I first thought I was. And Aaron Ramsdale seems to be having quite the similar problem. Last season, the 24-year-old was touted as one of the best goalkeepers in the league, as he helped his side run eventual treble winners very close to the Premier League title. But in Arteta's 5-step plan, step 4 seems to be unsettling your goalkeeper, and thus David Raya was brought from Brentford with an option to buy for £27 million after a 1-year loan. The Spanish keeper impressed heavily last season, keeping 11 clean sheets and amassing a save percentage that would put him in the top 6% of goalkeepers. And amongst interest from other top clubs, including Bayern Munich, where he would walk into the team, become the first choice goalkeeper and not move until someone tickled him, the 27-year-old decided to seemingly become the second choice goalkeeper to Manchester City's biggest threat. Having 2 goalkeepers who absolutely should be starting week in, week out seemed to be an unnecessary weight placed on that position, and one, in my opinion, will only see fans slowly turn on the once beloved Aaron Ramsdale. Number 1, Ansu Fati to Brighton. In a list full of surprising transfers, it seemed only fitting to end with Brighton Hove Albion. Perhaps the best run club in the world have struck once again with a move for highly rated youngster Ansu Fati. At one point in time, Ansu Fati was the youngest player to score in the Champions League, youngest player to play for Spain, 3rd youngest player to score in La Liga, 2nd youngest player to score at the El Clasico, and the youngest player to feature in the Champions League for Barcelona, all at the age of 16. So how did the next Messi end up on the South Coast? Well, in November 2020, Fati suffered a knee injury, and despite scoring in his first match back, his career has been injury-ridden ever since. So as Brighton looked to build a squad of young and hungry talent, ironically, Fati seemed to fit seamlessly. De Zerbi will hope that the Spaniard can turn around his injury record and live up to that incredibly high ceiling he set for himself at the age of just 16.